Author and intimacy expert Laura M. Brotherson, host of the Marital Intimacy Show, educates and inspires women to create a mutually fulfilling, intimate, and passionate marital relationship, emotionally, spiritually, and sexually.
Hi there. Welcome to the Marital Intimacy Show, available at themaritalintimacyshow.com. My name is Laura Brotherson. Thanks for tuning in today. Well, we get to talk about sex again today. How fun is that? The topic of this episode, number 16, is what sex means to a man. In working with couples, it's become quite evident that men and women each assign very different meaning to lovemaking. It's quite common and not terribly surprising that many women don't fully understand the nature of the sexual relationship from their husband's perspective. And to be fair, men have a difficult time comprehending the nature of the sexual relationship from their wives' perspective as well. For women, lovemaking isn't necessarily the primary or initial way that they feel loved. That seems to be a bit of a learned behavior for women. It kind of takes some learning to connect that sexual intimacy with feeling loved, but that's not necessarily true for a man. For many, if not most men, sex really is the epitome of love. It's probably one of the highest or most effective ways that they feel loved by their wife. Most wives really would be hard-pressed to find a better way to express their love to their husbands than by willingly and enthusiastically engaging in sexual intimacy with them. Where men tend to especially feel love through physical or sexual means, women tend to feel love through emotional means. That's just kind of in a nutshell. Certainly, a lot of men find themselves in what might be called a sexual desert in their marriages. And it's pretty heartbreaking. It's a real difficult place for a lot of these husbands to be. And I know there's another side of that coin, but it really is a motivating factor for me, given how many husbands I come in contact with who really struggle with that part of their marriage where they feel that their wife just isn't interested in sexual intimacy or lovemaking, just participates out of duty. It's a real personal blow for them when you understand how much sex means to a man and how important it is in how he feels loved. I'd like to share with you something that a man wrote on my Strengthening Marriage blog that I felt was pretty profound. And he really shares from his heart and soul what sex means to him. And although I understand he's coming from a place of deprivation, which can really heighten your senses and heighten your vulnerabilities, I do think that he provides a really vivid description of how important sex is for many, if not most, husbands. So here's what he writes. When a man feels the desire for sex, there is a sense of anticipation, even anxiety or tension. It is often felt as a tightness in the chest and even some pressure in the head. This is difficult to describe because when I put it in words, it sounds unpleasant, but it is not. If it continued indefinitely and without a pleasant climax, I am sure it would lead to a headache and be quite annoying and unpleasant. But it's not. These physical sensations are accompanied by an emotional headiness. A man feels bound and sealed to a wonderful future and a lack of will to fight it. The outside world begins to fade and have less effect on his senses. All his senses begin to intensify, sharpen, and focus on his wife. Each impulse from his senses intensifies the emotional and physical sensations. The smell of her perfume becomes very strong and intoxicating. He is convinced that he could detect it from the other side of the earth, even diluted by 1,000 winds. His vision feels like it is much more acute. Every feature on his wife contains 1,000 beauties to hold his gaze. It feels to him that he cannot physically turn his eyes away. Even if he could, what reason would there be? If he catches her eyes and holds them for but a moment, a feeling of weightlessness comes over him, and he feels like he is growing small and moving towards those beautiful pools. Her eyes grow larger and larger in the intensity of his focus until they seem to be the entire world, a world where there is only peace and comfort. Each sense bleeds over into the others. When he looks at her cheeks, he can feel them against his fingers. When he looks at her lips, he can feel them against his. He is convinced that he can feel it, but he discovers that he is wrong, for the powerful sensation of the actual touch is almost enough to overwhelm his faculties. It seems that he is supported only by the excitement and tension that he feels. The excitement continues to grow until he knows that his only desire is to be one with her, to be inside her. The senses continue to sharpen and focus. The emotions continue to build, beyond what he thought he could bear. By the time of climax, he is unconscious of an external world. He is only aware of the one person who used to be two. He goes on to say, "There is much more that I should say here if you are to get a complete picture of what sex means to a man. However, I think we can suffice it to say that the feelings and emotions build beyond imagination. And then in a matter of seconds, the feeling changes 180 degrees. What was the most beautiful exhilaration becomes the most consuming peace. The tension melts almost instantaneously. It would be difficult for him to remember any troubles or cares of the world. All is right, all is peace. Every muscle relaxes, and he lies next to the keeper of his heart." I love that part. "She has the power to take him beyond the veil, to taste of a heavenly pleasure beyond this world. Peace and calm as deep as any ocean envelop him." Sleep comes easily and is often difficult to hold back. Boy, isn't that true? To sleep with her in his arms is the greatest peace attainable on this earth. The effects of this experience last through the night and into the morning, when he wakens to see her lying next to him. He comes to know the impossible, that it was not a dream. Such pleasure, such happiness is possible, and she has given it to him. She is now the focus of his existence. He would give his life to keep her from care. If I can just interject a little something here, I think this represents this power that a wife has when she fully understands what the sexual relationship means, not only to her husband, but to the power and the oneness that is possible in marriage. Continuing with this husband's writings, he goes on, "His senses are still acute. The morning sun is brighter than he remembered. He cannot recall seeing a sky that blue before. Or, has the rain always smelled so new and fresh? It cannot be. This is a sudden change that has come over the entire world. Each detail is improved and perfected, for he is complete and whole. He marvels at the change that has come over him. He feels that his heart is no longer his own, but lives within her." I love that part too. "He fancies that if he strays too far from her side, its life-supporting power will attenuate, and he will die. Here is beauty beyond imagination. Here is the embodiment of all that is good and wholesome and desirable. Here is the pinnacle of all God's creations, and she, in her mercy, has given herself to him." Man sees no negative to sex, and numerous positives. Perhaps the most important thing is that most men will never feel closer, more intimate to their wives than when they are actually inside of her, sharing the most powerful expression of love, passion, openness, and oneness available to mortals. I don't know if that is an accurate representation for all men, certainly, but it is beautiful, and I think it well represents what sex means for a lot of men. And I think he writes it in a way that I think women can really hear it and have it really touch their hearts. So I hope that it was able to communicate something to you that maybe you didn't fully understand before about what lovemaking means to your husband. The point is that for many, if not most men, sex is a huge way, if not the strongest way, that they feel their wives' love. And when that isn't a priority for their wives, then it can be acutely painful for the husband. I do think husbands have a responsibility to clearly communicate what sex means to them so that their wives can better understand why it might be a good idea for sex to be a high priority to them as well. One of the best ways for husbands to be able to fully communicate the meaning of sex to their wives might be in writing, so that it doesn't become just another tired old argument about sex that maybe you've already have had plenty of before. I've just seen too many times when a husband and wife didn't understand what each other needed to feel loved. And I've seen too often where women just don't understand how profoundly powerful sexual connection and sexual intimacy is for their husbands in feeling connected and one with them. And I just don't want it to be the case in your marriage where you just didn't know. And that's why I encourage you to hear this and to communicate with each other about what this dimension of intimacy means for you. In fact, it might be great for both husband and wife to just sit down and write a little description of what lovemaking means to them and to share it with each other so that you know. And then you can move forward from there. Sex is a powerful form of love for both husbands and wives. But I think men especially assign a great power to sexual love in their marriages. Understanding what sex means to each other and making efforts to meet each other's needs is a basic trust and a responsibility within marriage. All right, there you have it. I hope you caught a vision of what sex means to your husband. Hey, ask him to see if this is true for him. I hope you will share this audio cast with others who might also desire to strengthen their marriages intimately. We also welcome your feedback at laura@strengtheningmarriage.com, or you can post your thoughts on the Marital Intimacy Show blog or the Marital Intimacy Show Facebook page. This has been episode number 16, What Sex Means to a Man, on the Marital Intimacy Show with Laura M. Brotherson. Thanks for tuning in today. We'll be back soon with more great insights for strengthening your marriage intimately. Remember, you can always check in at our website, strengtheningmarriage.com, to learn more. One way to better understand each other's intimate needs is to read the book And They Were Not Ashamed, Strengthening Marriage Through Sexual Fulfillment. So, until next time, this is Laura Brotherson with the Marital Intimacy Show. Have a great day and make yours a great marriage. And don't forget date night!